Souse us therefore in the powdering tub of thy mercy,
that we may be tripes fit for the heavenly table.
Welcome, Meatsmiths. You are listening to a Meatsmith Harvest, restoring husbandry to prosperity,
by means of the traditions of our fathers. This Farmstead Meatsmith production is made possible by you. If you like it, please consider supporting our team by going to patreon.com/Meatsmith and donating at a level you'd enjoy giving at. Your gift helps us increase the quality and quantity of all our free media education. Thank you, and happy harvesting. Hello, Brandon.
Hi. Good morning,
How
Lauren.
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
It's been far too long since our last recording.
Yeah.
I can't even remember how long it's been.
Mm-hmm. A lot has happened since our last recording.
That's right. We have lots to share on today's episode. So just lots of development in our family, in our business, and big moves, big transitions happening. So we'll get into all of that. But that's why we've been a little bit absent, haven't put out very much content lately. But I think it's been kind of a bottleneck, actually.
Mm-hmm.
We're hoping that with our direction that we'll be able to get some more content out in a more quick, robust, regular pace.
That's the idea.
So, but before we get into describing all of that, we wanted to talk a little bit about our classes that are coming up.
Yes.
Which, because of our transitional period, you've taken on more travel jobs than you normally do.
Yes.
For a fall season.
Yeah.
So you're actually doing quite a bit of traveling, and we're not hosting as much of the class. Actually, we're not hosting our normal family pig this fall, which I guess is kind of big news.
Yeah.
Normally we host spring and fall, and we're actually pushing back our family pig classes to the late winter. But in the meantime, this fall, you can travel to, I think, 3 different places for some one-day workshops. So our family pig is normally 3 days, but these one-day workshops are available now throughout the country. One of them will be in Washington State. One of them is in the Arkansas River Valley. One's in Virginia. So kind of all over the map. And
Yes. Yeah, and the reason that makes sense is because we're not going to have a butcher shop to be operating in for...
We're not?
No. I know. We're going to be slowly deconstructing it so that we can move it, because we are moving. We are moving. We are leaving the Pacific Northwest, and we're moving to the middle. So actually Farmstead Meatsmith is going to be within reach. It's going to be the closest it can be to everyone, I think. We're moving to, at least everyone in the continental United States. We are moving to Oklahoma, to northeastern Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And what that means is the clock has started. We have sold our lovely home here on Vashon and bought one in Tulsa area. And so now it is time to slowly unknit the shop that we have put together over many years, deposit it safely into a large empty moving cube, and then unload it and set it up again. And that's all starting now. Actually, like in about an hour, I'm gonna start doing all of that.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be quite a process.
Yeah.
It took us about 10 years to build it. I think it'll take us less time to unknit it.
Good, because we only have like a couple weeks to get out of here.
Yeah.
We finished up our last family pig class last weekend, just 2 days ago.
Last family pig in this region.
That's right. That's what I mean.
But I was even thinking, well, Okay, this is not working.
Oh.
Trying to get this to work. But anyway, we'll probably even do... We might be able to do more in here, in this region in the future.
Yeah.
Even when we are located
Yeah.
elsewise.
That's true.
So...
Yeah.
Which is good because we even have these... a lot of long distance classes this fall. Mm-hmm. One of which is in Washington, in a place called Husum. I don't know how to say it. Husum. Husum. Yeah. It's probably Husum. Husum, Washington. We've got one in Virginia, and we've got a class in Arkansas. And then even in the spring, we've got family pigs scheduled for outside Tulsa. Mm-hmm. And so those are all coming. And the one in Virginia is a beef class. That'll be great. And then the one in Husum, Washington is a lamb class. That will also be great. And it's 2 days. It's a 2-day class. And so it'll cover a lot, and it's neat. It's a neat farm where the sheep are being used by the farmer to sort of clear understory and create pasture. Here in the Pacific Northwest, where we have lots of understory and not a lot of pasture. And then it'll be really cool to harvest pigs in Arkansas at the farm of a Meatsmith member, where he is really taking seriously the idea of pigs roaming in a forest and eating the fruits of the forest. He's got lean, they're not lean. They are fatty, wonderful, smaller framed pigs.
Okay.
Whose metabolism is more efficient and doesn't need just the epic amount of high protein feed shoved into them at the maximum possible rate for them to thrive at all. These are efficient lard type pigs who are very adept at foraging the mast on the forest floor. Mm-hmm. And that's New Woodlands Farm, where that class will be. I'm going to try to get the live stream back on
That's
Facebook.
Fine. Yeah, so now that I just look at them, because I haven't seen the details of these classes until just now, but I know you've been, scheduling them rapidly. So it's like the full range on the map covered, and the full spectrum of animal material as well that you'll be using. So you can head to farmsteadmeatsmith.com and click on the education tab, and there's an upcoming classes area you can click on, and everything is listed there. Just under those 1-day workshops, at the very bottom we have our normal family pig classes, and we just scheduled those last week too, but they are not on Vashon Island. They are in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So if you want the regular 3-day intensive workshop on pigs, then those can be scheduled there, and you can. We already have people signing up. So we cap those at 8 people to try to get the maximum hands-on experience for you. Everything's gonna be the same, but it'll be in Tulsa. We will be getting the pigs as soon as we land in Tulsa, which will be right at the beginning of October, and just start growing them and feeding them. And then the classes are in late February and early March.
Yeah.
So it'll be a little cold there, I think, but I think March is actually a really great month to host them. So, and we're going to have an even bigger shop.
Yeah.
We have to do some renovating there, which we'll be doing this winter as well, this fall. But we're going to get it up to speed as soon as we can. And it'll be different. It'll be new for all of us, but it'll also be you and the material that you offer, and the students, which they always bring so much to the classes too. So it'll be a new environment, but the same good time.
New limitations. I am excited to see, because depending on the metric, some would regard Oklahoma, or at least those regions, the cross timber forests and, the prairies, as unfit for human habitation. Like it can be kind of brutal out there. You know, you've got the tornadoes and hot, dry, and then super icy cold, and the extremes of the Gulf and the Arctic and all that stuff. All of which, taken in the right way, conduce to create probably the most excellent cured products that I have yet to discover. So I'm really excited about that because these are just limitations. These are just borders that force you to rhyme instead of just to do free verse, if you know what I mean. And so I'm actually really looking forward to that, to see what the land produces. Because it'll probably be kind of a limited vocabulary of what the land can produce. And I'm speaking of like, you know, what uncontrolled temperature and humidity environments can produce in terms of cures, you know, keeping things very simple as we always do. It'll be great to see that because we're such a young country, we've imported all of our European style cures here. And all Europe has a much milder climate. Our extremes are more extreme. They're crazy within a single year. So our vocabulary of curing is a little more limited, just in terms of what we can make. More limited. It's an oxymoron. But you know what I mean. So it'll be neat to see what we can produce there. To see what the land produces with a minimum amount of coercion and artificial environments created by me. So I think that will be really fun. I've already known, I've had prosciutto cured in Oklahoma. Already. That works. Super ridiculously well.
By our friend?
Yes.
There? Okay.
And those are great. And it actually cured a lot quicker. Within a year, it was quite dry. So yeah, there's lots of variables that I'm very excited about. Because those are just the precondition for unique expression. It's actually a homogenizing, blending effect when you have infinite technological capacity at your fingertips. Because then you're left to your own choice as to what you want to make. How boring, you know?
Talk about limitation.
Your own choice. You just get to pick a recipe out of thin air. And yes, you can make it because you've got all of the parameters and the technological prowess with humidity and temperature control to make it. But your choice is the most uninspiring thing. It's limited by your knowledge, by all of your horizons and your prejudices and your, you know, the near infinite quantity of things you don't know. And so it's the fun stuff is when you look at an environment and you're like, gee, how does life even exist here? How do we create something that is going to be delicious, salubrious, and conducive to promoting human thriving and abundance? And then you create something in that context. That's really interesting. Prosciutto that has been tried by fire and as a result tastes way better. So I'm excited to see.
Yeah, you know, the more I think about it, you and your personality, I mean, you had to eventually settle on meatsmithing as your career because you needed to anchor and provide for the family, and you couldn't just keep going on to the next interest of yours, you know, because you are a pretty open guy. You're open to new experiences. That's part of your makeup, is what drives you as a creative person, is unexplored territory. And so, I mean, when we were first married and you would like be really fascinated by wine, and then it was meat, and then eventually it was like mechanics and tractors, and it was like, well, hang on, we gotta like land on one just so we can get some income.
Practically.
Yeah. And so, but like, not that you've peaked or tapped out the resources of things in this region. But
Yeah.
but I do know it. I think it will stimulate you to have new environment, new landscape to experiment with, right? Because you're such an experimenter. So that'll be really exciting, I think, to watch you do that and let the landscape unfold before you and see what kind of new things will come of it. What kind, the breed of pigs that we settle on may be different than the old spots that we loved here. Maybe it's a different breed of pigs or cattle. That's something is we really want to start getting into beef.
Yeah.
And we got 10 acres there. So, that is a whole new.
Yeah. 10 acres with fencing. Fencing is also a new thing for us.
I know. This place, we want to take a minute and tell them about our property that we're getting.
Yeah, it's pretty much right on the Arkansas River, and it's just outside of Tulsa, not very far, and it's 10 acres, fenced, and with some cross fencing for horses, as is common out there, and it's great. It's got a mix. It's in the cross timber, what they call the cross timber, which is a kind of forest and a kind of ecology that's kind of a mix of woodlands and prairie. It's not just solid, dense forest. It's a mix, and it actually stretches from like southeastern Kansas all the way down into north central Texas through Oklahoma. And they've got in this forest, there's lots of oak. And it's different. It's way different tree life than we are accustomed to here, where we can grow a tree crop in 40 to 50 years in this region of Douglas fir. It's crazy. We're surrounded by trees that are about 80 to 95 years old that are 120 feet tall. There you get, you can get like an eighth of an inch of circumference in a decade on a blackjack oak. So we're talking slow growers, dense hardwood, but it's blackjack, oak, post oak, there's black hickory, there's lots of all nut bearing trees, all very slow growing. And the real big specimens, they get to like 30 feet 40 feet. So
oh my goodness,
it's totally different,
a little different than our
majorly.
Yeah.
They'll be massed on the ground, but I think it's going to be, I know at least the blackjack oak, it takes 2 years for those acorns to ripen. 2 years. I think post oak is annual. We'll drop acorns every year, but I'm actually not sure about that. So, but there's a really good sized shop that naturally will have to really get in there. We have to do some work to it to make it work, but I mean, it's got the essentials. It's got power and water, so it won't be too much. We can pretty much host a class in the shop right away. Just need to get my walk-in set up, especially considering I've hosted classes in like farm fields with picnic tables.
Right.
You can technically do this just about anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is great. That's the kind of the point. Simple kit, and then it does have a barn.
Yeah.
Those things that farmers have, like real life farmers. It's just, I mean, I guess technically it's a stable. It's a horse stable. It's got stalls. It's got a central breezeway. It's got a tack room, all of which will be put to use by us. Just to have a stall, one place where you could put livestock in an effective way, such that they cannot get out. That is an experience I've never had.
Yeah.
It's always been this subtle negotiation between me and the animal. And it's like, I look at them and we're both like, okay, I know this fencing is kind of a joke. It's not really fencing. This is a symbol of our contract between each other. The fencing is a symbol, at least around here. It's a little electric wire, and
some baling twine.
Yeah, right. Always baling twine. The feed and the water happens inside the electric wire, and chaos is outside of it. So they usually want to stay in anyway, particularly if you're artful about teaching your animals what a fence is, because they do need to learn it. But if you happen to have a really stout stable, that does simplify the containment of creatures. So it has that. It also has a home where people could live. So our family could live in a home, which is good.
It's slightly bigger than our home that we currently live in. So it's...
Yeah, there's like 21 of us in 800 square feet? Is that what it is?
Not quite that bad.
Oh, okay.
No, there will be soon to be 10 people. We have another one coming on the way. So there's 7 on the hoof right now, as it were, plus us.
Yeah.
That makes 9.
9.
And then there's one coming in probably March, April.
Okay.
So
yeah, we wanted to pick a really like easy downtime to move. So we thought pregnancy.
Actually, I think it will happen in my second trimester. See, I've been first trimestering, nausea, slightly anxious, depressed. Like all these hormones go crazy in me first trimester. Right during the house selling and buying period. So it's been...
And I'm sure the house selling and buying had no effect on your anxiety.
My mental well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. I got through it. I can see light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, the house is better. It's better. It'll be better. It's actually a bigger kitchen. I won't have to paint the walls or wait 10 years to paint the walls like I did with this house. It's just very clean, and it's got pretty brick on the outside, and
it's a nice home.
It's a very nice home. Yeah. And the shop is also bigger. The it has like a kind of a 2-bedroom apartment attached to it. So we're not quite sure how it will configure into the business, but it'll definitely allow for more class space, more office space for the business. We want to hire people out there to help with the media production specifically, and just try to get more education out there.
Yeah.
It has a poultry fatting house that we didn't even know about when we bought, or when we were buying the place. It just sort of appeared.
That's true.
Us.
We've been talking about the poultry fatting house for a couple years now.
Oh my goodness. Well, 2 recordings ago, we were trying to tell people we're going to do goose stuff this fall, and we were. But this summer is when we decided to move, so we had to put that on hold. But this place has a poultry fatting house, so we can do one next year.
It does. It's kind of huge too.
Yeah. So it has room to grow in. And we were starting to get a little bit constricted on this property.
Yeah, particularly with the house. And another major limiting factor here was the electricity. Our panel, we can only run so much power to the property. And we're pretty much maxed out. I mean, we are unequivocally maxed out. And so if I were to expand my walk-in to be able to harvest more beef, for example, we would have to move somewhere. Because we're just maxed out, or expand freezer space, or even add any more equipment. We're just we're maxed out with the sub panel in the shop for sure. And one beef pretty much takes up my walk-in, especially if you want to do prolonged aging, which I always do. And it's hard to have the walk-in taken up for a month with a cow, because I need to use it for other stuff. To keep up the business. Right. So the beef is no side issue. When we were looking in Oklahoma, we really wanted more than 5 acres so that we could try to get a couple beef cow on the land. Our red meat needs are growing as a family, and it's hard for us to deny that we love pork and it's essential, but so is beef. Like they're both essential. And just the iron, the sheer calories and protein needs are they're climbing. So we want to get some beef, and then that can provide a lot of material for you to learn on, to teach on, to grow that part of what you offer. The hunt is up, the hunt
How many people do you know you would say truly share your back to the land values? Or your passion for home-scale craft meat curing? Or simply love the multifaceted beauty of a good meal as obsessively as you do? Maybe a handful? At farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we've created an online community of hundreds of omnivores from around the world and a platform for them to learn from and inspire one another. In addition to our major semi-annual hands-on educational event, The Family Pig, here at our Pacific Northwest homestead, over at farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we host a purely digital membership program with an archive of film and textual resources years deep now, for you to dive deeper into your food journey with. And both our classes and online program include access to our private community Facebook page for your continued education and fellowship. We've been told that our classes are life-changing and the membership program unparalleled in quality and quantity. To get a taste of our education, search farmsteadmeatsmith.com and our YouTube channel for our free films, conversations, and downloads. Explore how we and other meatsmiths across the globe may best come alongside you, putting the knife in your hand, article by article, and comment thread by comment thread, and can support you in building your home around the harvest. Please head to farmsteadmeatsmith.com today.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about rotationally grazing butter.
Yes.
So I'm thinking it really, because of just the simple structures that are there, it has it's not far away from getting a dairy cow.
It's not. I'd like to do that.
Which
I mean, we are looking for a raw milk source in near the Tulsa area. If anyone's listening and they know of one, please let us know, because I'm on the hunt. But if I don't, and I haven't even looked up the raw milk laws in Oklahoma. I'm sure you can get it, but you have to look a little bit. And but if it proves harder than I can manage, I'm gonna want a gal pretty quickly.
Oh yeah. If it's not possible to get it, we would just get the source.
Yeah.
Of the raw milk.
Yeah. So anyway, classes are going to happen throughout the country, and let's dive in. We've given some notice to people about this big news of ours through the newsletter. We did a couple newsletters. So if you're not on the newsletter, by the way, please subscribe to our newsletter. We tend to spit out news or information that way first, because we can't always just hop on a podcast, but we can try to quickly get an email out. So but anyway, we let people know that way a few weeks ago that we were moving, and this last week I let people know we were planning these family pig classes in Tulsa. Once we knew we were moving, it was like the very next day we were planning the family pig out there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, the why. We get people all the time asking, what's prompting this move of ours? And people ask really cautiously, because it's a personal thing to move. But I think people also just want to know. Lots of people are moving right now, and it's sort of this shift that's happening for lots of different reasons. But it came up in our last family pig class, and so just wanted to go into that a little bit as much as we can right here on the podcast for people. And it is multivariate, lots of layers involved. But why did we originally, we were we've anchored here in this place. It's part of our charism is to anchor and be hospitable. That's the very Benedictine kind of approach that families naturally find themselves in anyways. So it almost seems odd to go against that and uproot. You put it really eloquently, actually, in the newsletter. You said we were transplanting little seedlings elsewhere. I think maybe it started with this restlessness of being on the island itself, and only once we
We live on an island.
Yeah. Once we started imagining ourselves being closer to the civilization off island, that we were starting to need more, that we're like, well, where could we go?
Yeah.
That makes most sense. And we thought for a while, and very intensely, maybe we could just stay closer to Tacoma and just get off island. But the dollars and cents of that just didn't
add up.
It wasn't going to work, even though the on island, you know, selling our house, we're going to be okay, you know. But anyway, we decided not to stay in Washington State at all. So
yeah, and it's tricky. It can seem weird to uproot from a place that you feel so certain that you will be there forever, you know, and especially a place that you have such affection for, that you've actually cultivated affection for. You know, you've cultivated affection for all of its limitations and, you know, the ways in which it's tried you, and you stick out with it, which only makes you love it more. And so it is definitely, it's hard to leave, but, you know, in a sense, it's why it's really, maybe it's just super efficient to have a hierarchy of values because it does make things, it helps you be decisive. And I have no illusions that the absolute good is being on this land, you know? So being on this place is not the highest good. It is very good because this land is beautiful and we love it. We have great affection for it. But there are things that are more important, and it's very clear. They're very clearly more important. And so we don't have to muddle around too long, and we haven't, in really trying to tear ourselves away and undergoing lots of emotional torment over it, because it's kind of clear. It's not an absolute good, but that's not to say it's bad. The land, this place, our rootedness in it has been only really a blessing and a good, and I still have great affection for it. But it, in the end, it is at the service of a higher good. And so if that is compromised, then it's like, oh, well, it actually kind of makes the decision very simple and very efficient. And for us, you know, the primary reason was to be closer to the Mass. We were going off island to a church that is 12 miles away as the crow flies, but you put a ferry and a crossing of the Puget Sound in between us, and now it's 2 hours. And that's rough, especially since we managed with it for quite a while. But the more we go to Mass, the more you want to go to Mass. And the thing about the Catholic Mass is that it is offered every day. And it's not just a worship service, you know, for Catholics. It is primarily the right worship of God. That's what happens at the Mass. And so it's not entirely essential that there be a quote unquote audience, you know. It is the worship of God that we get to assist at. And that happens every day in a church and in a Catholic church. And so you can go every day. And it, you know, the way I tie it into our whole project here, and even, you know, when people take our classes, I think this is something that they lock into or even already understand, is that when we receive the abundance of the land, it's always as a gift. You know, even though like we are covered in pig hair and bruises and our backs hurt and we're out of breath and our equipment is breaking or whatever, and you're toiling to harvest this pig. You are obviously laboring. You're not laboring if you just go and pick it up at the grocery store. So you're clearly picking up the extra work and toil to harvest this animal. Nonetheless, at the end of the whole process, there's this extraordinary magnanimity that you always get more, even though you worked for 3 days, to say nothing of, the 7 to 10 months that you raised the pig. There is still an obvious abundance that cannot be accounted for merely by your input. It's beyond. And that, I think, compels all of us to I feel like we have this impulse to reverence. And so we kind of stand back after the pig is killed, and we've received something. We haven't just taken something. We've obviously received it. And then we're going in that mode of receptivity. We're going to unknit the pig in accordance with its nature as it has been given to us, rather than just smash it through, a lot of coercive machines into what satisfies our likes and dislikes. We're actually going to receive it and unknit the pig, kind of in the way it was put together. And when you act docilely that way, the harvest is, again, it turns out to be, you get more than what you put in the beginning. It always exceeds your expectations. And this is that thing we've always called the burden of abundance. Is if you dare to harvest your pig, the thing that is going to be most unexpected to you is how much you get from your pig or your cow or your backyard, if you dare to receive all of it. And so all of that, I think, is that is the fundamental response to being that we feel, the generosity of this abundance. And I think our human response to that is reverence, to quote, sort of, in a loose, broken up way, Dietrich von Hildebrand. Not that I've read him extensively. I just really like that quote. Because it resonates with me. It makes sense. And the eminent, the primary way, the noblest way that reverence is, that we can sort of acquit ourselves of that and give that reverence, is in the holy sacrifice of the Mass. Because ultimately it comes from our Creator. And that's, so as people that go to Mass, that is the ultimate expression of that. And so that's why we want to be closer to that. Because again, going back to the idea of having a hierarchy, or like just prioritizing your values. What is the value of your land relative to the value of, raising your children, or, having those things prioritized in a pretty clear hierarchy creates an efficiency and a clarity for the way you run your life. And in this case, the Mass it's the highest expression of that. And so if you get that end right, if you get that final goal right worship of God, then other things tend to fall in line. And they are ordered under that. And we can assist at that, again, like I was saying, every day at the Mass. So that was our primary goal, to be able to go to Mass frequently. That's just part of what we receive at the Mass, because we didn't even talk about what we receive at the Mass, but that's that really reorients, and it orients everything to its proper end. And you cannot limit the trickle down effect of that in the rest of your life. And that ordering.
We're jumping the gun a little bit on our audience, because we haven't talked about a whole lot of our religion, even though it colors everything we do. And we're not shy in hiding things, but as far as tackling it head on as a subject, there's so much more to say, and so much more build up to kind of gradually unfold, as it has for us, because it's taken us a decade to kind of, we were agrarian before we were Catholic, and then eventually we became Catholic, and then so it's all related. But As far as us moving, we were starting to see and it's taken we're so thick-headed. It's taken a couple years, but we have seen this trickle-down effect into our family, into our marriage, into our own souls individually, and the souls of our kids. You can see them make their own connections, and
even just the domestic tranquility in the broadest sense, like the ordering of the home.
That's right.
All the way down to like beauty, just the physical beauty of the home. All of those things.
Yeah. If you come and visit our home this summer, it looks vastly different, and it may even feel vastly different than it did 5 years ago, just because things have become a little more ordered. And, we've been Catholic for almost a decade now. And I think, and there is Mass on the island, and it's where we were converted originally. And there's great things happening at the on-island parish. And the reason why we transitioned is a whole nother topic, but it has been the last couple of years that we've actually started to understand. We're going to a more traditional Catholic parish, in the sense that there's Latin being said, Gregorian chant being sung, the homilies teach the perennial tradition of the church doctors. It's just more, it's a lot of things, but I think what's caught our imagination and caught our attention there is the fruit, where the rubber meets the road, and like where we've seen our lives being ordered. And that's why we go 2 hours there. When we became Catholic, it was more of an intellectual assent. We didn't have to change a whole lot of our lives to go to this parish, and a lot of our friends were going there, but it's not like we saw this big conversion in this full sense of the word. Whereas I think we have experienced that because we saw more of the Catholic tradition. We were able to go, my life doesn't quite line up. I think I need to make a couple changes. And anyway, and then when you make those changes and you take that step into that leap of faith, I guess, it's like you start to see changes, and you go, I got to get closer. I got to go more often. I need more of this, So, and being an hour and a half to 2 hours away, that's not going to work. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably the main reason.
Yeah.
Is to eliminate that 2 hour barrier. Because it takes extraordinary virtue to go
with 8
multiple
children,
times a week.
7 kids. Yeah.
That's a big benefit too. And I think the move has definitely been expedited, my desire to move, by the past year and a half to 2 years of what's gone on in the world and how our state has responded to it. And it's weird to me because it really, so much of it comes down to personality and the way individuals assess risk in their lives. And I am someone that grew up homeschooled. So, right away I'm out of the, I've never been to a public school, in my life. And it was very much I wouldn't say casual, but it was rigorous to a certain extent. So I grew up in that context, and then both my parents were small business owners. And that means we are pretty much accustomed to the regular confrontation with chaos on a regular basis. And that's just what it is to own a small business. Anyone who does that knows this, that the idea that your income could evaporate at any moment, you just get used to that. There's always that possibility. And so I feel like, particularly for just what it is to own a small business, it actually expands your tolerance for risk because you have no illusions about you don't have the luxury to have illusions about your security. You just know, if the phone could just not ring, and then I don't have work, and then I'll have to do something else, and I don't even know what that is, but I'll just do it, and that is just the way it is. So that is par. That's normal. Par for the course. And I feel like that does, again, that expands your tolerance for risk. And I feel like I have a high tolerance for risk. And which also means that when it comes down to choosing between, liberty and security, as John Milton would put it, there's bondage with ease and strenuous liberty. And that always is the equation, always. It seems to me. That's kind of we could almost make that a universal law. If you're going to go for security, you're going to sacrifice some liberty. And if you're going to go for liberty, you're going to suffer more. There's risk, there's danger there. And I just feel like we are temperamentally, as individuals, predisposed to fall along one or the other of those lines. And then we act as if we are utterly objective in our assessment of whether or not we go for liberty or security. And that it's so we can, each side could marshal equal quantities of compelling data. And there is no shortage of contradictory data supplied by both sides of the paradigm in our current mode right now. So you can completely just fabricate what you want, any argument. But in the end, it's hard for me to see how we're not just justifying our predisposed temperaments towards the whole thing. And in the end, temperamentally, I'm okay with risk. That's just how we've always done. And particularly since I value certain things above security. A lot of things, in fact, much things. And our state, on the other hand, is coming way heavy, Washington State, on the side of absolute security. It's the absolute good, it's the highest good. Freedom from any risk of getting people sick or becoming sick yourself. And that's not my absolute good at all. I value a lot of things over that. And I'm willing to risk for them. So that's helped us expedite our decision too.
The narrative here in this state seems to be also, because I totally agree with everything you just said, but the number one comeback to that would be, well, isn't that a little bit presumptuous on your part to put your freedom higher than my priority, which is to not get sick? And I think that, and so freedom, like when we say, we need freedom, let's go to a state that's more free. Some people hear you say, I am presumptuous and I want to live my life the way I want to do it. And that ultimately it's like we've reframed that word into a selfish word. It's selfish of you to be free. And it's because we've lost the more traditional definition of freedom, of liberty, which is not license. And I think we've probably talked about this, but like when we say I want to be free, some people hear, maybe because this is how they treat their own freedom, I want to do what I want to do.
Right. And that's not active freedom.
That's not what we mean.
Yeah.
Like we want to be able to be free to grow our children in a wholesome way. And that is very burdensome and limiting on our own selves. And like, it takes a lot of responsibility, a lot of self-negation. It's hard. It's extremely hard. So, but I don't think people really hear that. They just want to hear, at least here in this state, that's how we've experienced that we're just kind of flaunting our own, I don't know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I have heard people kind of frame it this way. And so it trickles down into policies here where there's less freedom of speech, less freedom of journalism, gun rights are being, they're just not as helpful here. The freedoms that we want, ultimately, in order to prosper and to grow, again, requiring limitation, boundaries, like responsibility, work, I'm not just talking, I guess I'm talking about a well-ordered garden that has a lot of input. That's a really free garden. I'm not talking about like our wild blackberry bushes. They're free too in a very licentious way, but they bear no fruit. They're ugly and gnarly.
Yeah.
And
well, they do bear fruit. It's just blackberries.
Yeah, it's true.
That's all you get.
Very, you can expect what you can, yeah. So anyway, yeah, I just, cause I have that same impulse as you. I mean, we're united on everything, but that word freedom is tricky, and it's looked at differently in different states now.
Yeah.
It seems like. This conversation will be continued in a forthcoming Part 2 episode. Thanks for listening, and peace be with you.